Coming up on the next edition of Power and Politics, yet another assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump, the second in as many months. And a battle over what congressional districts in the Sunshine State should look like is now before the Florida Supreme Court. Hello and welcome to another edition of Power and Politics. I'm your host, Frank Cipolla. Power and Politics is a weekly, right-down-the-middle look at the top stories affecting the state with a special emphasis on the psychology behind the decisions and issues that affect our lives. I'm joined today, as I am every week, by my co-host, longtime practicing psychologist and the nation's Emmy Award-winning political psychologist, Dr. Bart Rossi. Dr.
Great
welcome.
to be here, Frank.
Well, we start the show, unfortunately, with news of yet another attempted assassination against former President Donald Trump, and the investigation is ongoing. A suspect has been arrested, but it has also raised questions about the inflammatory rhetoric on both sides, which leads some to take matters into their own hands. Doctor, you are a psychologist. You have seen this before. We all have. What's in the mind of somebody who feels as though I have to take charge of this issue and assassinate, whether it be a congressman or a president or whomever?
Well, Frank, let's get to that question. But I'm actually taking a bigger view of this whole thing based on your question. My thought here is that we're all fearful now. Everybody is wondering, well, if you can't defend a candidate for president, what about all of us? What about all the other sitting Congress people? 535 people in Congress, counting the 100 in the Senate. How do you actually protect them? And how do we protect each other? I think that's where this is going. And politically, I think that what we have here now, we have two very disturbed individuals who have what psychologists call retained anger over a long period of time. And that anger sometimes generates into a rage. Once you get into that rage, then these folks will do almost anything, including try to shoot or kill a presidential nominee. And a lot of this we see with shooters, in the movie theater or supermarket, whatever. They have anger that's been there for many years, and then when it manifests itself to the point of rage, they start to take action because they're alone, they're aloof, they really don't. They're really people who are on the outside looking into society. They feel like they're left out and they're lost. And those are the type of people who do this.
Well, you have to wonder when you say something like that, why somebody would want to get into politics to begin with. I read an article this week about a politician who says, I can't do this anymore. I did not sign up to have a police detail around me 24/7.
Right. You had Senator Warnock in Georgia say the other day, and many Republicans agree with him, by the way, that we're all sitting ducks, is what he said. And he didn't mean it just for himself as a senator. Mm-hmm. He meant it all of us. And I think that's true. That's where we are right now.
All right. Also making news this week, the much coveted presidential endorsement from singing superstar Taylor Swift goes to Kamala Harris. It has triggered some reaction from former President Donald Trump, if you saw some of his remarks. The real question, though, is do celebrity endorsements really matter? Now, Taylor Swift has 284 million Instagram followers, not all of them in the United States, obviously. And as we taped, we found out that Billie Eilish, another popular singer who has about 50 million followers, is also endorsing Harris. Does it matter?
Usually, I would say not so much. But with Taylor Swift, I think it's a very different ballgame. I think it's the magnitude of her star, but not just that. It's also that she's going to wrap herself around the abortion issue and say, hey, I'm a woman, my body, my choice. A lot of Republican folks agree with her on that. So I think she could make a difference in the numbers. How much, we'll probably find out after the election, but she could be significant in that respect.
You see, I would respectfully disagree. Okay. And we do this sometimes, folks. Okay. I respectfully disagree. The average young voter does not really vote in the numbers that a middle-aged person would, or certainly senior citizens, older Americans, okay? Yes, they get excited about it. But come election day, they're home sleeping or they're busy with school or whatever the case may be, and they don't go to the polls. Is this enough? Is Taylor Swift's endorsement enough to get them motivated enough to get out there and vote?
Good point, but I think it's about intensity. And I think she could drive some people who are leaning in her direction, but as you say, may not have voted. They may sign up now to vote. And that's going to be a different
They might sign up, but will they vote?
I think they will. There'll be a certain number who sign up, and then those who do vote. it could be significant at the margins, Frank.
We will see.
Okay.
Come Election Day. All right, time now for one of our regular segments, a commentary from Dr. Bart Rossi that we call the Rossi Rant.
And Frank, today I'd like to talk about what I call debate spin, okay? When Biden didn't look good in his debate, we critiqued him and we said that really he was quite awful. He really looked frail. And then, of course, we had the spin doctors on TV and the politicians saying, well, maybe he didn't do that badly. Well, he did. And now we're spinning things in another way that I think is very interesting from the psychology point of view, okay? We're saying, some people are saying, well, Harris had the questions in advance. Well, to me, this has to be one of the most bizarre conspiracy theories I have ever heard. Because think about it. Think about it psychologically, okay? We all knew the questions. Everybody knew the questions in advance. We knew that there was going to be one on Ukraine. We knew that there was going to be a question on abortion, maybe a few, on the border, on immigrants, on the economy. We certainly knew that. So how could they tell anybody why? Of course, they didn't, that would be a conspiracy. But now I'm thinking that people are making stuff up that is so bizarre that it's actually backfiring. It's actually making people think about these conspiracy theories and how troubling they really are.
Thank you, Doctor. All right, coming up, the Florida Supreme Court is right in the middle of an ongoing legal argument about whether congressional districts drawn up by the Florida State Legislature 2 years ago are fair. That when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back to Power and Politics. I'm Frank Cipolla, joined by clinical and political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi. Florida's Supreme Court justices are deciding the thorny question of whether or not Florida's congressional map put in place in 2022 is an example of extreme gerrymandering, which does not accurately reflect the population it serves. Those hoping to modify the congressional map point to the state legislature splitting a North Florida congressional district, which was majority African American, into 4 mostly white Republican-dominated districts. Listen, state legislatures all around the country
They do it
this.
everywhere, right?
Everywhere. So it's not just Florida.
No.
But the quote-unquote extreme gerrymandering here,
right.
Is this a problem?
Well, of course it's a problem. But on this one, Frank, I think we have to agree with a lot of conservatives in this regard. You know, it's who you vote and who you vote for that makes a difference. And if you want to have a Republican state Senate and a Republican representative group, well, you may get Republican, districts.
Yeah.
So, again, people need to decide who are they voting for, because this gerrymandering is a problem. And, of course, Republicans do it, Democrats do it someplace else. And I do think it's an issue, and it just smacks of really bad politics. And people don't like politics for a lot of reasons. This is one of them.
Well, there should be some, in my opinion at least, some sort of federal law, and I think it was in the John Lewis Voting
Right.
Act that was not passed, that would sort of codify this. In other words, every state has to do X, Y, Z before you begin
Right.
putting together your congressional district so they can be as fair as possible.
That type of federal legislation would make a lot of sense. Would it pass right now? I don't know about that, but I, as we say, Frank, we always say here, logic is not in style.
That's
well, here's
correct.
another
We
example.
should change the name of the show sometimes to
We
that.
could.
Okay. Also making news in Florida this week, the ACLU is suing the state, saying it is using state resources in campaigning against Amendment 4, which would enshrine abortion rights into the state constitution and allow women up to 24 weeks to get an abortion. Right now it's 6 weeks. The question is, should the state get involved at all in what is a ballot question, an initiative that voters need to decide?
Well, Frank, here's the psychology for me on this one, okay? Republicans have said, and by the way, this is a position that they're taking, okay, it's a real position, that it should be up to the states to decide on the abortion issue, okay? It shouldn't be a federal thing, if you will. It should be the states. Well, why is it so hard to get a vote at the state level? All of the states so far have had difficulty getting it on the ballot, moving it forward, and in Florida, it's 60%. So that's bizarre. I mean, 59% of the people could say, yes, we want this amendment to pass, but the 41% will be the winner?
Sometimes when these amendments are passed, they head back into the courts
Right.
or the state legislature waters them down a bit or modifies them, what makes it more difficult to happen. So it's really never the voter who has the last say.
Yes, but one thing that seems to be happening now with Kansas and some other states going in the direction of abortion rights is that it seems to be backfiring against some of those folks who really want to push against women. It doesn't seem like it's going in the right direction for them.
You make a very good point, because we've seen in these states, mostly Republican states or right-leaning states, abortion amendments passed overwhelmingly. In some
cases. Even though it's been hard to get it on the ballot.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we have another story, of course, with regard to what's going on at the University of Florida. The more investigators at the University of Florida dig, the worse it looks for former University of Florida President Ben Sasse. Now, in addition to tripling the university's budget in the year and a half he was president, a student news service finds he allegedly spent over $1 million on lavish dinners, football tailgate parties, and extravagant social functions. This is an ongoing story. We've talked about this over the last couple of months. The former senator became the president of the University of Florida and then just went on a spending spree.
Well, I remember him as the senator from Nebraska who was concerned about the budget, and he wanted a more conservative view of the budget. He wanted a balanced budget. But what about now when he is being investigated for his own actions, where he's basically a spendthrift? You talk about, turning off people when it comes to politics. This is it. I mean, this is not a good reflection, of course, on him, but also the governor who appointed him, really.
Well, we've also discovered that he had some of his former Senate staff on retainer working for him remotely, and actually flew some of them in every once in a while to make an appearance walking around the hallways like they were actually there when they weren't. This is a mess. I asked this question over a month ago. They could not find somebody in Florida to head up the University of Florida?
This seems to be some type of a gig to make money for him. Somehow, in some perverted way, we don't know the bottom line on that, but it is very odd that he would be brought in here to spend a lot of money. And for what purpose? Who's to gain on that? It's a mystery, really.
And I think the bigger question is, where is this money coming from?
Where's it coming from? Yeah. And is he responsible now for paying that money back?
Oh, I doubt that. Yeah. Have you ever heard a politician responsible for paying money back?
Their pockets are tight.
I remember years ago I covered a story with John Corzine, who for a time was the governor of New Jersey, and he then ran a hedge fund, lost $1 billion, and he never paid back that money.
He didn't pay it back. No.
It was gone.
It was gone.
Interesting. All of this very interesting. Ben Sasse still on the hot seat, apparently.
Yes.
And
he deserves to be on the hot seat. Yeah.
All right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, you never know what the weather will be like in the Sunshine State. And every week we use that as our setup to identify who is in the sunshine this week and who got drenched. Sunshine or showers is next on Power and Politics. Welcome back to Power and Politics. The weather is always a bit different depending on where you live in Florida and based on what time of the day it is as well. Sometimes it's sunny on one side of the state, raining on the other side. So every week we use that example to identify who or what enjoyed the sunshine for the week and who needed an umbrella in a segment we call Sunshine or Showers. We start with a sunny day as we always do. Right. Who was in the sunshine for you this week?
Well, Frank, I have a whole group of people, 42 state attorney generals got together, bipartisan group, big bipartisan group, and they decided to pitch to the United States Congress that there should be warning labels on certain social media apps, and I think it's a great idea. I think that we should have more focus on how dangerous some of these apps are, and I think that it may not change the world, of course, by having these warnings, but I think it's a step in the right direction, and it shows that there could be bipartisan support for helping our kids go in the right direction when it comes to social media.
You hear so many unfortunate stories about kids who are bullied online, committing suicide, depression, and so on and so forth. People should know.
Incredible number of psychological problems that result from this, and I think it's a step in the right direction.
Okay, so those attorneys general are in the sunshine
they're
this
in
week for you.
They are all in the sunshine.
All right, good.
So who do you have? Can you match that? Can you match that?
Yeah. I think I might be able to match that. Okay, the Bradford County Fire Rescue. Bradford County is in between Jacksonville and Gainesville. If you're watching in Jacksonville, we're on CW17. In Gainesville, we're on NBC9. If you're watching this show there. They have put in the town of Stark, Florida, 3 cabinets that contain Narcan. And that is that drug that that prevents opioid overdose victims from dying.
It does.
And I think that's a great thing to do. They've identified the problem.
Yep.
They're doing something about it. It's free. It's there for you in Stark, Florida. So I'm going to put the Bradford County Fire Rescue in the sunshine this week.
It's a good one because addiction and dependency is still up, but there are measures now so that that loss of life is actually lessened.
Exactly.
Good
now, we have sunny days. You and I, we enjoyed the sunny day, but you know, there's always showers lurking somewhere in Florida. Who's in the showers this week?
Frank, not really showers. We're talking about hurricane rainfall of monumental dimensions here.
Wow.
And I'm talking about Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Sean Combs. I mean, the indictment against him, and now he's in jail. The judge would not even allow him to be out on bail. The indictment against him is so overwhelming with the sex trafficking and prostitution and drugs and racketeering. I mean, it's so insane and so bizarre and overwhelming that I wonder if he will ever be out of jail, even for one day. It seems like this is an impossible situation.
There are some bizarre charges against him.
Yes.
You know, he is a Florida resident. There's a connection there as well. That is just a bizarre situation. And the fact that he's so wealthy and was not allowed out because he certainly has the money to post bail.
But they're afraid that he will not contain himself because of his history.
Interesting.
And it's probably warranted by the judge, yeah. So who do you have now for your shower? Do you have hurricane showers?
You're getting better at this. You're getting much better at this.
Okay.
I have Laura Loomer in the showers. And let me say, this is not political.
No.
But if you are running for president, for any office, you need to have advisors around you who make sense. And she's clearly a conspiracy theorist. She probably was chatting on the plane with Donald Trump before the debate, mentioned this in passing, or maybe said, hey, you have to mention this. And now we have these memes, we have these stories, we have these photographs of everybody making fun of Donald Trump, saying that they eat dogs and cats in Springfield, Ohio. Laura Loomer, in another world, should not be anywhere near a presidential candidate. Forget the presidential candidate. Yeah. So she is in the showers this week.
And she says 9/11 was an inside job by the U.S. government.
More conspiracies.
Yes.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, a commentary from yours truly titled, Let's Be Frank, when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back. Hate is contagious, and right now, we're all infected. The inflammatory rhetoric and predictions from both sides of the political spectrum about what may happen in November if the other side wins has led to an increase in politicians being targeted. As an example, this past week's attempted assassination of former President Trump. This after former President Trump was shot in the ear by a gunman 2 months ago. And it's not just Trump. Who can forget the attempted murder of former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords during what was a routine campaign stop in Arizona? Or the gunman in 2017 who opened fire at a congressional softball practice, injuring 6 members of Congress. This is not who we are. This can't be. Because you know what countries see this kind of political violence? Banana republics and dictatorships. Places like Venezuela, Panama, and Russia. Some of you might know that I spent almost 45 years in radio and television news, and make no mistake, my all-news cable colleagues share some of the blame for where we are. Many Floridians get their news from the all-news cable station of their choice. It's not always news. Most of the time, it's commentary. Commentary that creates fear and anxiety, and for some thoughts that the solutions to our problems are not at the ballot box, but at the end of a rifle. Mental health issues, the easy availability of guns exacerbate the problem. Even I have felt the fear that emanates from my TV. When I do, I shut it off. I take a walk. I read or enjoy my family. Doomsday doesn't have to be every day. We have a lot to live for. Most of us live in safety with all the necessities we need. Most of us are surrounded by people we love and children who need us. There was a time when we did not speak about politics or religion with friends. Now it seems personal conversations quickly devolve into political or religious disagreement. Power and Politics has been on the air since January. At least 3 of my commentaries have been calls for national unity. I do so again. We need to collectively come to our senses. Let's try not to get consumed by what may happen, but keep our hearts and minds where they should be. We'll be right back. That's it for this week's edition of Power and Politics. On behalf of my co-host, political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi, and the fine people working behind the scenes, thanks for joining us. As always, we'd like to know what you think. Visit us at powerandpolitics.tv or email us at info@powerandpolitics.tv. We'll see you again a week from now at this time and on this same station. Have a great week.